Welcome to Idaho State Police Forensic Services. Today we're going to host you on a tour of our Meridian facility. We hope that you learn something as we talk to our scientists about what they do in forensic science. We've moved to the chemistry or the controlled substances area of the laboratory, and here is where they test for any kind of controlled drugs or controlled substances. I'm here with the supervisor of the chemistry unit to tell us a little bit about what you do here in this unit.
So with the chemistry or controlled substance section, we analyze evidence for the presence of controlled substances or drugs. Anything that is considered a seized drug needs to be confirmed so that it can be used in court. This is our wet chemistry lab. When we receive an item, the analyst will compare the information on the envelope to what is in our computer system to make sure that we have the right item and that all the information is correct. And then we document the contents of packages. We take a weight of any suspected controlled substance without any of the packaging material. So what we're reporting on our reports is actually a net weight of just the suspected controlled substance. After receiving the weight, then we move on to preliminary testing. A presumptive or color test just gives us an idea of what the sample may contain. The test we use is Marquis, and in the presence of amphetamine or methamphetamine, goes from a clear liquid to a bright orange reaction. Our most common substances are methamphetamine, marijuana, cocaine. We have a lot of the tablets that are legitimate pharmaceuticals and the illicit tablets that don't always contain what they're supposed to. And in the last few years, we've started getting in some fentanyl samples. We have two instruments that we routinely use, the IR or infrared spectrometer, and this is most often used for methamphetamine. It is a very quick analysis. For pure compounds, it gets our testing done within a few minutes. The pattern of the infrared light absorption from the sample that we placed on the instrument is the red line on the top, and the bottom spectra is of our known sample of methamphetamine that's in the instrument, and we're just looking for the pattern to match. The majority of our analysis is actually performed on an instrument called the GCMS, or gas chromatograph mass spectrometer. The first portion, the GC, separates out the different components in a sample. So you can put in a mixture of cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, and they all come out at different times. So what we're looking for is the specific retention time that the sample exits the sample. The second portion of the instrument, the mass spectrometer, takes the samples and breaks them down into fragments. So we can use this information, both the retention time and the fragmentation from the mass spec, to identify the controlled substance.
One of the big issues in our state over the last few years has been hemp versus marijuana.
Our normal marijuana testing does not differentiate between them. It is the same plant, it is just the concentration of the cannabinoids, or most specifically THC, that's different in the plants. Our initial test is to look at the sample under a microscope. What we're actually looking for, they're called cystolithic hairs that are on the plant material. They're kind of a claw-shaped hair, and those are on the top surface of the leaf of marijuana. The other one is called thin layer chromatography. It separates the resins, and when you spray this with an indicating dye, it turns them different colors. And so we're actually looking for this red spot that you can see here. that indicates the presence of THC, or tetrahydrocannabinol, the active ingredient in marijuana. And the last test is just a color test, and we use those 3 tests together to identify marijuana or the resins thereof. None of them individually allow us to identify marijuana, but it is the combination of all 3 together. The general testing for marijuana would actually have the exact same results for hemp. Hemp is defined as cannabis that has a concentration of 0.3% THC or below. We cannot differentiate with our microscopic thin layer chromatography and the color test. We have to move on to testing on the HPLC, or liquid chromatography. This allows us to actually calculate the concentration of THC, or tetrahydrocannabinol. So we do the calculations, and anything higher than 0.3%, the plant material is considered marijuana. Because all of our evidence may later be used in court, we would have to be able to identify the actual item that we tested. So at the end of our analysis, all of our evidence is marked with case number, item number, and our initials so that we can identify that later. The items are also resealed, and the seal will get identifying markings placed on it so that we can tell which seal we put on there, and that later when we see the item that our seals are still intact to show that the item has not been accessed since it was in our custody.
Thank you for joining us on our tour of Idaho State Police Forensic Services. We hope that you learned something and found it informative. We hope that you learned of our commitment to sound science and serving the citizens of the state of Idaho.